Douglas Ferguson here, and I'm going to go over the Focus Finder with you. And I've got my colleague John Fitch with me, and this Focus Finder will be looking at John Fitch and I just walked through. So I facilitated him through this, and I'll show you what happened. So the Focus Finder is comprised of four quadrants, and we're really using this tool to look at a opportunity or challenge and what we might do to understand what next steps are. And we'll focus in on where you're stuck, maybe what's inspiring you and what you have access to, and how those can play a role in getting to focus and starting to make progress. And in the case of the session John and I just ran, we looked at first where he would like to go. And he said things like, well, Apple Arcade are doing these things, and there's virtual meetings all around us. There's great tools, but how can we gamify this more and really leverage the fact that when people get creative and playful, that that you can inspire more innovation. And so after that, we dove a little bit into what was holding him back, and then at that point he talked about this notion of you can build it immediately. We can go build it. We know what to do. We know how to do it, but it comes down to time. Are we going to bootstrap, or are we going to get investment and throw a bunch of resources at it? And this being a side hustle, it's something that we had to do in found time. So that really seemed like a big challenge for him. And then we moved on to who was inspiring him, and things like Basecamp, these opinionated approaches to solving specific problems, and people having a personal sandbox so that you can work together alone, and even these examples of people using Figma for fun. So how do we think about how these people inspire us, and who's supporting us through this journey? And clearly John found a lot of inspiration from Basecamp and these unique uses of Figma, how they're kind of repurposing them in new ways. And then we moved on to what do we have? How do we appreciate what we've done so far and the resources we have available to us? And John really focused in on the fact that we have a lot of playful facilitation experiences that we can draw from. We've tons of experience seeing what works in real life, things like liberating structures, etc. And it's really about how we apply these experiences that we need to adapt, and we can draw from these experiences, these inspirations, and that's a real asset that he valued. And you see that as I was going through the Focus Finder, that some of them are here in this outer ring, and the purpose of that is as we're wrapping up the quadrants, we'll go back and we'll reference each quadrant. We'll pull in the most important pieces so that we can really drive our focus and think about, well, what do next steps look like? And as John and I talked a little bit more, he told me that his focus was going to be to frame out, to create some wireframes for prototypes, one a week, of a game or an experience that he's delivered in person, and how he might adapt that for users in front of test users. So now that I've gone through that kind of quickly, I'd love to hear from you, John, about your experience going through this, and any reactions you might have to the Focus Finder.
Yeah, thanks, Douglas. So if you're listening to this and you are a leader, a manager, a facilitator of any kind, you can guide anyone through this regarding anything they have going on. And it is helpful to help them focus so the outcome is very specific and practical. But I can tell you from my side, it's also a beautiful form of therapy. And so going through this, I was able to realize like, oh, wow, this is more exciting than I thought. The challenges are real, but I still have a lot in my control that I can do. And I think hence the name Focus Finder. You helped me focus on what to do next, but I also internally focused on some really wonderful vectors that are going to be helpful moving forward. And it only took us about 15 minutes. And of course, you could take as long as you want in each quadrant, but in just 15 minutes, I have more clarity on my potential. So thank you.
You're welcome, John.